Hubley's Lunch and Learn. This is a 30-minute webinar, so hopefully you've grabbed a bite to eat, that you are paying attention for this quick 30-minute session on 3 steps to fix your workflows. The agenda is the speaker introduction. Then we will go into what your workflows currently are looking like today. And then we will explain 3 simple steps to fix your workflows, followed by a Q&A at the end. So for our speaker introduction, today we are joined by Ron Bordetsky, COO and co-founder of Hubley. So Ron has worked with hundreds of financial advisory firms and their teams to help use Hubley to fully enhance their business. And to date, Ron has helped build thousands of workflows for financial advisors and their teams. Joining us as well is Olivia Law. So Liv is the support lead here at Hubley. She has also helped build thousands of workflows for financial advisory teams and also implement their automations. So unfortunately, you won't get to hear her cute accent today because she will just be joining us on the chat. So if you have any questions in the chat, Liv will be answering them live for you there. So without further ado, over to you, Ron.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Tessa. Thanks for joining us today. Really excited to lead our first Lunch and Learn. And as Tessa mentioned, and as everybody knows, we're going to be really covering 3 simple steps to fix your workflows. But to fix a workflow, I like to start by talking about what we've seen by and large go wrong with the workflows and the way that the workflows are managed today. We see a variety of tools that advisors and support teams use to manage their work and to kind of plan out their client experience, from specialized tools like Workday, Mondays.com, and Asana, all the way down to specialized CRMs like Redtail and Wealthbox that have workflow functionality. But we also see most people that are coming in to use Hubley really rely heavily on tools such as Excel, Word documents, sticky notes on their table, a whiteboard behind them, and what seems like endless to-do lists. Many of the workflows that we see coming through look like this. There's nothing particularly wrong with well-documented processes, but they really do look like standard operating procedures. PDFs or printed papers that you sift through and find when you're trying to find that step that you might be forgetting in a fairly long documented process. The problem with bad workflows isn't necessarily that they're bad to have, but that there are 5 main areas where they kind of come short. It becomes difficult to scale high-touch experiences for clients because really sifting through that same PDF that has 55 steps ordered on it, it becomes a little bit time-consuming. And most of the time, that's a step that we find a lot of you skip and really rely on memory along the way, and really rely on those to-do lists, sticky notes, spreadsheets to track the outlying tasks that you're waiting on the client to get back to you. This creates a lack of visibility and this kind of lack of having a single source of truth to see how far along all of your clients are, but also how far along each of your clients are down that process with that funnel, those kind of stages of steps through that new client experience or tax preparation process for those that are doing tax prep coming up next quarter. This also makes it difficult to customize that service experience for each and every client that goes through. Documenting the process is great because you really have that starting point and you have that standardized experience that you try to deliver to everybody. But then inevitably, client needs change. Some clients come to you with different priorities or priorities in different orders. And really that doesn't create a very good way for you to reorder those steps or reorder those entire, I'd say, sections of steps in order to do things for clients in a different order. You're again left relying on memory or relying on scattered notes or comments in your client profiles or in your client folders or meeting notes. This also creates barriers to delegating tasks and really keeping yourself and your team accountable for the steps that they're responsible for. And lastly, this inevitably leads to tasks slipping through the cracks. This leads you to feeling like you're constantly trying to keep all the balls from falling off of the table. And we've heard these this time and time again that at least you're waking up in the middle of the night thinking, what did I forget? Or, oh God, I forgot to send a follow-up email to this one client a week after the meeting as I promised. But we also know that everyone on this call, all 38 of you, are here really to gain different benefits from better workflows. So we'd love to open up a poll to see what are you looking to benefit from planning better workflows, and whether you're using Hubly or you're going to be implementing this in just reworking how you already manage your workflows in a spreadsheet or in your CRM. Tessa, if you want to launch that poll, we can get some feedback. All right, let's see the results here. the top vote here is to ensure that nothing slips through the cracks. And then second from the top there, we have easily delegate tasks internally, have that record of client activity, and create that consistent experience for all of your clients, and spend your time more effectively and more efficiently onboard your clients. It's very consistent with what we hear from many new users as they get started in Hubly. We ask the same question or kickoff part of our survey, which is, what are you looking to gain from getting this better way to work or better way to plan these workflows? So to kind of dive into that, I think many of these items are connected. When you have a better workflow tool that works more naturally with your CRM, works more naturally with the way that you work and interact with clients, you end up meeting a lot of these different points. You have greater visibility to ensure that things don't fall through the cracks. You're able to more easily delegate individual tasks to people on your team. And most importantly, as people complete work for clients, or if you're on your own, as you complete this work for clients, you have a consistent service record that's getting created compliantly. And you can always look back on it to trace back where something was missed, if something got missed, or where a decision was made and why, as long as you create good documentation around those more complicated tasks. And we're going to touch on that in a second. But for starters, we really try to boil this down to 3 steps for better workflows. And in fact, after the second step, we are going to tell you to pause and actually use the workflows that you stubbed out in the first 2 steps for a couple of clients before you go on and try to turn on automations. And we hear that a lot. A lot of I'd say new users come in and they're excited for the automations, but they don't realize that the majority of the value is actually from this stopping and thinking about planning those workflows and planning that experience in a way that the client's going to experience it with you, rather than in kind of a tabular format of a list of tasks. And that's why we plan this lunch and learn for late November, early December, because there's no better time to slow down and pause and think about your business than going into the holidays, when you're hopefully not going to have as many client meetings, and really going into the new year, you have this fresh start to think about just those processes and those workflows that are important to you in January, and then use that as a starting point to launch that year off kind of in a new light. So I'm going to ask you to do that as we go through the next few stages. On your own, think about one process or one set of workflows that are going to really come in handy in January. If January is historically a big month for growth for your business, then prospect managing and new client onboarding, we saw that get a lot of votes in there. Then follow along with that. If January is tax season and you're treading it, then I'd say try to follow the steps that we're going to go through to plan your tax workflows. But if January is just another month and you're going to start doing your beginning of the year check-ins with your clients, maybe you're already a Hubly user and you have those workflows built out, well, pop those open on your screen, because it's never a bad idea to actually review what you have, see what works, keep that, see what doesn't work, so you can change and iterate on those tasks, and then see which tasks are inefficient or which things you still do manually that you can start layering on those automations, which we're going to touch on last. If you have any questions along the way, please do ask. I see John posted a great question there in the chat as well. So that first step is to plan those stages. Again, for each of you, if you've written down that process or that kind of priority for January, think about your stages in that process as we go through this part. In this example, we're talking about that new client prospecting process. This is not the onboarding, this is just prospect managing. It's really useful for those firms that maybe run high volume events. So if in-person events are coming back, or you run webinars or other lunch and learn series yourselves with prospective clients or with employers for their employees, then you might need a better way to manage all those prospects that come in after each of those high volume engagements. So we recommend starting by just planning out the stages, which are going to allow you to create these breakpoints in order to otherwise be one single workflow. In this case, we recommend breaking it down into prospecting one new lead. This is going to be a place where whenever a lead comes in from our website, when they come in from the mailing list that we get after running an event, you'd want to load those leads up into the prospecting one new lead workflow. This creates a list of clients that are in this very first stage. Don't worry about the tasks for now. Just worry about a place to park the clients that are coming in, or the prospects in this case that are coming in. If you're planning your tax workflows, well, this might be something a lot more simple. This might be your tax organizer workflow. So keeping track of all the clients you send the tax organizers out to. Or if you're planning an engagement like estate planning or insurance, then your very first stage might be to actually go ahead and schedule that topic meeting with your client. But this allows you to track all the clients that are the starting line of that race for you. This next stage, we basically like to make this the first milestone. In this case, for a new prospect, it's going to be that introductory call or meeting. So basically, once that meeting gets scheduled, the client, we're going to move them out of the new lead, so they're no longer getting calls from us every 3 days. They're getting moved into the client's meeting workflow. Once that meeting is completed, we're going to move them to the next milestone. And in this case, it's going to be our post-meeting steps, because we see that you have a lot of them for those new prospects. You might be sending them information on how to sync their data so you can get some preliminary information and put together a value add plan or summary for the client. Or maybe for you, it's simpler than that. You send a follow-up email, and then you send your engagement documents to outline what next steps will look like. But whatever that is, we recommend separating it out, because a lot of the times you don't get through the full list of tasks right away after the meeting. So once you're done the meeting, you can move the client forward into the post-meeting steps. And then you can add your finish lines. In this case, the finish line is actually the signing workflow. So if the client responds back positively after that post-meeting things that you do, then hopefully they say they're ready to go forward. You move them into the signing workflow, you go through your signing steps, your billing steps, whatever else kind of meets them at the finish line. And then you move them on to the onboarding, account transfers, data collection, whatever comes next. And we recommend breaking that out. If you're just managing your prospects here, break that out into a new client onboarding set of workflows. But what happens if you don't hear back from them? In this case, in Hubly at least, you can actually use the fact that these processes are flexible. You can drag and drop new workflows in between existing ones. And in this case, we did just that. We called it prospecting 3.5. And this is what happens in 2 weeks when we don't hear back from the client. This could be something that you track manually. You know that you met with Betty, and it's been 2 weeks already. So you add her into there and you do your reconnect steps. But we can also do that automatically in Hubly, and we're going to show you that as well. Once you've planned your stages, you can actually start using them right away. You can load in your clients into the lead workflow, just so you see all of your leads and you know who you need to move along forward in those workflows and processes. You don't need to invest all of the time up front to plan your stages, plan your tasks, and add automations. In fact, we advise you not to, because once you add some clients into there visually, as we have in here, you might realize that things don't quite make sense. And maybe that's when you discover that you need a separate stage for what happens when clients don't get back to you. So try to get clients into your workflow as soon as possible as a lesson there. Then start planning your tasks. Really break this down into two types of workflow that you're planning. We like to recommend thinking this way because we see a lot of differences in how you plan the tasks for your low volume workflows versus your high volume workflows. Your low volume workflows, they're few and far between. They might not happen for all of your clients every single quarter or even every single year. But when they do happen, it's paramount that no steps get missed. And because they're so low volume, you might not have the muscle memory developed yet to make sure that you do have all those steps covered. Your lower volume workflows could also be workflows that are with specific new account openings or new account fundings, where you have those important compliance steps or steps that result in NIGOs and returns if they're missed. But with low volume workflows, we recommend getting into a higher level of detail. Really using tasks in those workflows to ensure that steps don't get missed and that experience is bulletproof, whether you're doing it or as your team grows, you delegate it to somebody else that joins your team. How this is different from high volume workflows is that with high volume workflows, we recommend the exact opposite. Don't go and plan 15 tasks for a workflow that you're going to pump all 50 or 60 or 70 households through. Because then your job, and often the complaints we're going to hear, is that your job starts feeling like a professional task completer. You're just going in there and completing the same task for 17 clients. And you don't need to do that because you're already done it from memory. You want to avoid that. Don't complete tasks just for the sake of completing tasks or creating a compliance record. In the high volume workflows, you want to keep these task lists sparse because, again, you have a lot of clients in there at once. And the task lists in these workflows should more so be bookmarks and how far along you are. And a good example is the prospecting process. It's kind of in between the highest volume and the lowest volume end of the spectrum. But these tasks in these workflows should really be there to help you bookmark how far along are you with that new prospect. This is your highest volume workflow in this process. So in here, we just have 2 or 3 steps. You've completed the first call, you've completed the second attempt, you've completed the third attempt. If for you, you have emails that are attached to that, then you might just call this first contact, second contact, third contact. But the point is that it allows you to glance at this workflow and see the progress bar and know that if it's the third of the way there, you basically completed one of those attempts. 2/3, 2 of those attempts, 3/3, or fully there, you've completed all of your attempts, and this prospect is not responding, so you can archive them or try a different approach, add them to your mailing list, for example. But when it comes to your more important workflows of post-meeting steps, maybe your volume here is more manageable, and you have a few tasks that you really care about doing a certain way. You can get into a little bit more detail with your post-meeting steps. If you have a step that you need to go and set them up in e-money or write capital, well, that should be a distinct step, because if you miss it, then that's going to create a negative client experience. But again, these steps should not be there just for the sake of having them there. They should really be there to help you bookmark how far along you are. Because if it's just you right now, if you're solo, then that's great. It gets it out of your head, you can sleep better at night, and you can park a client and come back to them in the morning. But as your team grows, you're going to keep your sanity, because you're going to know exactly how far along each of your prospects are in workflows that you don't even take care of right now, that you're not responsible for. You have the confidence to delegate them away. So really investing that time today into documenting the steps that are currently in your head will pay back dividends as inevitably your business grows, or you want to spend less time working in your business. And the last thing in Hubly that we want to cover is whatever tool you pick to manage your workflows, be it Hubly or something else, you really want to make sure that this tool allows you to customize those steps that you plan on a client-by-client basis. What you don't want to do is be locked into a set of 4 tasks in a specific order that you have to complete all of them in order to move the client to the next stage. And if there's an exception or there's a special case that you want to go above and beyond your standardized 4 steps, you should not have to rely on creating one-off tasks in the CRM or leaving that as a note under the meeting notes or under the comments section. Doing that, you end up creating multiple sources of truth, and that's inevitably going to cause you to, again, feel like you're keeping all those different sources of truth together in your head. So by picking a solution that actually allows you to customize not just the order of the tasks, but to create custom tasks for clients and to move clients onto the next workflow without completing all the steps in this workflow, really is going to allow you to feel like the tool is supporting you and working for you instead of the other way around. What you're seeing on the screen here is that this prospect responded to the first attempt. We scheduled the meeting through Calendly, and now we don't have to do a second or third attempt. So we leave those tasks incomplete and we move on to the introductory call. So that's the example here that we wanted to show you. If you're planning your tax workflows, well, maybe not all clients have the exact same employment types or income types. So you don't need to collect all those documents in your data organizer. If you're doing estate planning, then again, some clients have different household and family situations and different needs. So you want to have all those different items documented and itemized, but you might only need to do a handful for each client. So you can reorder them and you can delete them or add custom ones for each of those based on each client's needs. After you're done this, we recommend to pause. Take a breather, step back. Don't start loading clients in right away. Maybe do that the next day. Give yourself some time to kind of process what you've planned out the stages to be in that process, what you've documented out the tasks to be, and then come back to it the next day and begin adding your first few clients in through those different stages in that process. So those different workflows. If we're, again, focusing on our new prospects and leads, add all of your prospects and leads into that first workflow. If you have a couple of meetings already scheduled or a couple of meetings that you're following up on still, add those into those respective workflows. Put them to the test, see how they perform for those clients, because you're not perfect. Even though you think that you've thought of everything, you might find that you've overcomplicated it, or maybe you forgot a step or you missed an important kind of checkpoint that you want to make sure you document. But pause and actually use these workflows before going on to the third step of adding automations. Once you put these workflows to use, you're going to notice that inevitably you might be setting up a manual reminder for a task every single time. So maybe it's that first call that you do to a prospect, and then you set up a reminder if they don't answer to follow up with a second attempt 2 days later. Well, in this case, that'd be a really good idea to go back and edit that workflow and add a smart reminder that's pre-configured on that second task. In Hubble, you can do that, and you can say that this reminder should only get scheduled once the first task is completed. So it'll bring it back to your attention 2 days later, and you're not going to have to go in and add that reminder manually. You might also find that you're adding clients repeatedly to the same workflow. So looking at your tax process, maybe you're searching for and you're finding a group of clients that you do tax prep for every year. And then you have to remember to actually go and load them in to that first workflow to send out the tax organizer. Or you might be planning your insurance review workflows, and you want to make sure that you stay on top of your client's insurance needs. So you always set a reminder in your calendar to reconnect with Bob or Tom or Lily 6 months before their term life policy is up. When you find yourself doing these manual find and retrieve steps, that's a good idea to go back in and layer on workflow rules to automate that for you. In Hubly, we can monitor those term life insurance dates. We could also monitor your needs through different ways to categorize clients. So your clients with a tax prep need could automatically get added on the 1st of January. We could also automate a couple of other different things as well. But the point is that you don't want to start with the automations. You actually want to layer them on as you identify those needs and those use cases. Because it's really easy to again, get stuck planning really complicated workflows with way too many tasks that have all the automations you could possibly need. And then you wake up on Monday and you have 65 households loaded into 13 different workflows. And that wasn't what you wanted to do on Monday. So you want to make sure you're building out workflows, tasks, and automations to work for you, to support you in what you already do. And once you've had that handled, then you can start introducing new services. And we typically recommend not doing that for the first 6 months of coming into Hubly. Focus on the services that you already offer, focus on shoring them up in Hubly, and then come back around to introduce and review which new services or new processes or new workflows would really prop up your business and the offerings that you already have for your clients to meet their needs. And then the third thing here is connecting to Zapier. We often get this question very early on, do you work with Zapier? And we say, yes, absolutely. What do you want to do? And the answer there is, oh no, it's just important to know that you do. With Zapier, it really only comes in handy for us when you find yourself rekeying data. Prospects come in from your Zoom registration for your webinars that you run. Well, that's a good Zap to create so that as people register, they get added automatically into that right workflow in Hubly for you to reconnect after the call. Or maybe you find yourself constantly rekeying your new prospect calls from your Calendly or Schedule Once or Acuity meeting link on your website. That's a good time to use that as well.